Good evening and welcome to the Bhagavatam. Today we continue with the 11th canto, chapter number 14. We're on the Uddhava Gita, and this is the conversation going on between Uddhava, Krishna's very best friend, and Krishna himself, the Supreme Godhead. When he was here on this earth 5,000 years ago, chose to live in Dwarka. And it is there that this conversation takes place. So as we've been reading about the Uddhava Gita in the last few episodes, today the conversation moves further. You see, the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita, in fact all the Vedic literatures, are about questions. We all have questions, and we all need to get clear about our doubts, because only when our doubts are clear can there be faith, Shraddha. Adau Shraddha Tatha Sadhu Sangha. So that is the beginning of the process. Most people think faith is or at least in many religions, it is considered that faith is the ultimate thing. But in Bhakti, it is said that faith is the beginning. Adau Shraddha. In the beginning, there must be some Shraddha, some faith. How does one get this faith? Tatha Sadhu Sangha. From associating with saintly persons. A saintly person is not just someone who is knowledgeable, but who, along with being knowledgeable, lives the teachings that they are purporting. Without that, it doesn't make much sense. If you're not actualized in that, if you're not able to at least embody some of that, it becomes very difficult to believe someone. So faith comes from seeing someone who has actually followed a particular path and has seen the results of that. Just like if I've been to a certain restaurant or a certain country or a certain place and I tell you about it and I've been there and I can give you my personal experience. Well, now it carries a lot more weight than just something out of a book or on the internet. So Uddhava is asking Krishna. He says, my dear Krishna, the learned sages who explain Vedic literature recommend various processes for perfecting one's life. Considering these varieties of viewpoint, please tell me whether all these processes are equally important or whether one of them is supreme. So, if you're not familiar, the Vedic literatures are very extensive. The ancient Vedas, written over 5,000 years ago, the Rig Veda, the Atharva Veda, the Sama Veda, Yajur Veda, they cover so many different aspects of life. And they go through a process in which one worships nature. Then one comes to the stage of worshipping the devas or the demigods who are in charge of nature. And then ultimately it progresses to an impersonal realization of God. And then from there it progresses to a personal, monotheistic realization of God. So it's a very fascinating journey that the author, Vedavyas, takes us through. Now, of course, it's not his concoction or his writing. The Vedas have been around for thousands of years before him, from the time of the beginning of this creation. So Uddhava is asking, the Vedas prescribe many different processes, and he's telling Krishna, you've been talking of bhakti yoga or devotional service. Which is the best? Which is the way? Are all of the paths important? Karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, so many different kinds of yogic processes. Are they all important? Is one of them more important? Where does one place one's focus? So he says, my dear Krishna, you have clearly explained the process of bhakti yoga or devotional service or love of God. You've clearly explained this path by which a devotee removes all material association from his life, enabling him to fix his mind on you. So, this verse is also given in the Bhagavad Gita. Man mana bhava mad bhakto mad yaji mam namaskuru. Right? Those of you who are familiar with the Bhagavad Gita may have heard this verse, where Krishna says, engage your mind always in thinking of me. Become my devotee. offer obeisances to me, and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. So notice in here that Uddhava is saying, yes, you've said that thinking of you and serving you is very important. But he also adds another element. He says that the person must remove themselves from all material association. So he says, by which a devotee, bhakti yoga, by which a devotee removes all material association from his life, enabling him to fix his mind upon you. If yoga is about dhyana, fixing your mind, the question is, what should you fix your mind on? Some people talk in terms of mindfulness. Fix your mind upon whatever is in front of you, trees, the plants, whatever you're doing. Please fix your mind there. And yes, as a beginning process, that might be helpful. But what is the ultimate place where one must focus and devote one's attention? See, attention is a very valuable commodity. Everybody wants it. So the question is, where should we put our attention? The entire point of meditation is dhyana. Dhyana means focus, and it means meditation. Meditation is, what are you focusing on? And if your focus is on material things and pleasures, then that's what you'll get more of. But if your focus is on the ultimate goal of life or God, on Sri Krishna, then that's what you will get. But to do that, when you focus on something, you need to cut out everything else. So therefore he says, by which a devotee removes all material association from his life. The person removes material association not as a matter of rejecting the world, but rather from a place of fixing his mind upon Krishna. And when you fix your mind on him and him alone, then everything else just falls away. It's like if you're looking at, let's say, the eyes of your beloved, right? Then at that moment, the entire world falls away. And so it is with Sri Krishna or God, that when you focus upon him and him alone, then the entire world falls away naturally. It is not an artificial thing. So man mana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Krishna says, engage your mind always in thinking of me. Become my devotee. Offer obeisances to me and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. So what is the secret in being able to come to God after we leave this body? Is being absorbed in him. This absorption, this dhyan, this complete becoming magna is that level of absorption that there's nothing else that appeals to me anymore. And this doesn't come right away. In the beginning, we're mixed. We have what's called our bhakti is mixed with gyan, for example, knowledge and devotion going together. So that's called jnana mishra bhakti. And then you have karma mishra bhakti there. You're doing something, but you got your job, you got your work, your business, and you're also engaged in bhakti. It can also be that you're doing service for Krishna, but you're more absorbed in the act of doing rather than in the devotion. So there's still a mixture. And then there comes a point where it is pure devotion, and you purely dedicated and focused upon the Supreme Being with no desire from him. Right? And so this is where you're not asking anything from God. God is not your Santa Claus or your genie in the bottle who's going to give you fulfill all your desires and give you everything you've always wanted, and he's going to turn lead into gold and make your life beautiful, and is going to fulfill all your desires, give you the best of things in life. And when bad things happen, it doesn't mean God's turned against you, and when good things happen, doesn't mean God is suddenly favoring you. He is neither favoring nor judging or criticizing or putting down or disfavoring anyone. He is neutral. You are here with your desires, trying to fulfill them. And in so doing, you get to learn whether those desires actually fulfill you or not. Do they really satisfy you? Or are they just temporary things to which you have to put a lot of energy into and get very little result out of? So Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Being, said, so he's replying to Uddhava now, by the influence of time, the transcendental sound of Vedic knowledge was lost at the time of annihilation. So there comes a time when the universe is annihilated and then goes into a resting phase and then is recreated all over again. And then again comes to a point of annihilation and then again goes through that resting phase and then again is recreated all over again. Scientists actually know this. They know that the universe is expanding right now and then gradually it'll come to a place where it will collapse into itself. This was known by Vedic sages thousands of years ago. So he says, at the time of annihilation, the Vedic knowledge was lost. Therefore, when the subsequent creation took place, I spoke the Vedic knowledge to Brahma, because I myself am Dharma, which is enunciated in the Vedas. He is the embodiment of Dharma, Krishna. Krishna says, Vedaischa sarvair aham eva vedya, that I am the source of all the Vedas, and by all the Vedas I am to be known. So these Vedas, they give us the knowledge about how human beings should live. What is the proper way for us to live in harmony with nature, with each other, and with ourselves? But with that knowledge being gone, people quarrel with each other. They quarrel within their families, they quarrel within their communities, and they quarrel within themselves. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam Pavitram idam uttamam pratyakshavagam dharmyam susukham kartum avyayam. This knowledge is referred to as Raja Vidya, the king of knowledge, the king of education. And he says this is Raja Guhyam, the most secret of all secrets, the most confidential knowledge. It is Pavitram, the purest knowledge. And because it gives pratyaksha, meaning direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of dharma or religion. See, there is religion that is based on belief, as I was saying earlier. There is religion on faith, based on books. But what the Vedic system and what Krishna is talking about gives you here is direct perception of the self, of the soul, by realization. You get to perceive, experience directly, pratyaksha, who you are at the deepest level. We all struggle with this. We want to know, who am I? And Krishna is saying, here's how you get to know. This is the way, this knowledge, this vidya, this will give you direct perception of the self by realization. Therefore, it is the perfection of dharma. It is the perfection of religion. This knowledge is avyayam, everlasting. So it was there from the beginning of time. It is eternal. And it is susukham, joyfully performed. Not just joyful, sukha means joy, but susukham means extremely joyful. Why else should one partake of something unless it was completely joyful and ecstatic? That's what we're going to see and learn about today. So then he says, I spoke this to Brahma. Brahma spoke this Vedic knowledge to his son Manu, and the 7 great sages headed by Brighu then accepted the same knowledge from Manu. From the forefathers headed by Brighu and other sons of Brahma appeared many children and descendants who assumed different forms as devatas or demigods, demons, human beings, and so on. All of the many universal species, all of the different species across the universe appeared with different natures and desires generated from the 3 modes of material nature. Therefore, because of different characteristics of the living entities within the universe, there are a great many Vedic rituals, mantras, and rewards. So to sum up this point, what he's saying is because there are so many different kinds of beings and entities and people at different levels of consciousness, therefore there are so many Vedic rituals, mantras, and rewards. Okay? Because everyone's at a different level. It's not a one-size-fits-all. as most religions tend to be. It is very specific. Each person, according to their own realization, their own proclivity, is brought into the Vedic system and shown a pathway by which to evolve. Many people have material desires. So then they say, all right, do these rituals, do this process, fulfill your desires, gradually start noticing what the outcomes are. Are you truly satisfied? Is it truly fulfilling? Is it actually removing your problems, or are you continuously seeking more and more and more, and like a never-ending treadmill? So, thus, due to the great variety of desires and natures among human beings, there are many different theistic philosophies of life which are handed down through tradition, custom, and disciplic succession. There are other teachers who directly support atheistic viewpoints. So whether you are an atheist, a pantheist, atheist of course doesn't believe in God. Pantheist is one who sees that nature, I think that nature is God. Polytheistic, you believe there are many gods. Whether you are an impersonalist, and you believe that God is just an energy or a light, or you believe you are a monotheist, you believe there is a being, a person who is the supreme being of all. In all cases, the Vedas have you covered, and they've got something to offer to everyone. And there is the attempt to try to bring everyone onto this grand and wonderful pathway of Dharma. So, Krishna is now saying, O best among men, Uddhava, the intelligence of human beings is bewildered by my maya, my illusory potency. The illusions of this world, right? Starting from the fact that I think I'm this body, that my thoughts are real, that this world is real, that's all part of maya. That's all part of the illusory potency of Krishna. So he says, the intelligence of human beings is bewildered. We're all bewildered. Please understand that. What we think is true is not true. What we think is real is not real. And therefore the Bhagavatam comes, says, to separate reality from illusion for the welfare of all. To come and show you what is actually real and what is illusion. So he says, the intelligence of human beings is bewildered by my illusory potency, and thus, according to their own activities and whims, they speak in innumerable ways about what is actually good for people. You may have noticed everyone has their own idea about what is actually good for you. But I would say don't trust these people. You need to trust you. What is actually good for you is only known to you. So find that. Find that knowledge which touches your heart, that wisdom that opens your and awakens your soul and brings you best and most wonderful understanding of who you are and who is God in a way that is joyful. Some say that people will be happy by performing pious ritual, religious activities. Others say that happiness is attained through fame, sense gratification, truthfulness, self-control, peace, self-interest, political influence, opulence, renunciation, consumption, sacrifice, penance, charity, vows, regulated duties, or strict disciplinary regulation. Each process has its proponents. All the persons I have just mentioned obtain temporary fruits from their material work. Indeed, the meager and miserable situations they achieve bring future unhappiness and are based on ignorance. See, most things of this world bring temporary happiness, if they do. If most of the time it's a struggle. So let's say you have a car, it brings temporary happiness, comfort, ease, so on, get from one place to another, maybe some luxury, maybe some enjoyment. And then there comes a point where it gives you trouble. It might break down, you might get a flat tire, you might have an accident, you might have any number of things go wrong. And then it's a headache. And now you've got to deal with that. And as time goes, it starts to give you more of those headaches. And so it is with everything in this world. Everything here has diminishing returns. It doesn't keep increasing, it keeps decreasing. As it gets older, as it gets less efficient, as it works less, as it breaks down. Yeah, we have to keep changing it. So for that, you have to buy something new, and then something new, and then something new. And now you're on this treadmill of always getting new things. Clothes, fashions, technology, you name it. So he says, indeed, the meager and miserable situations they achieve bring future unhappiness and are based on ignorance. Even while enjoying the fruits of their work, such persons are filled with lamentation. O learned Uddhava, those who fix their consciousness on me, giving up all material desires. This is called nirapeksha. Giving up all material desires, meaning wanting nothing from God. No apeksha, no wish from God, give me this, give me that. No. Those who fix their consciousness on me, on God, on Sri Krishna, Bhagavan, giving up all material desires, nirapeksha, share with me a happiness, sukham, that cannot possibly be experienced by those engaged in sense gratification. So what is Krishna referring to here? This is very, very earth-shattering almost. That there is a happiness, sukha, a happiness that is far beyond that which can be experienced by our senses. Do you know that? There is a happiness that is beyond all earthly happiness. And it can be experienced here and now. How? He gives the process. When you fix your consciousness upon Krishna, without any material desires or giving up material desires, because you got to let go something to get something. Like when you're focused upon building your business, or you're starting to want a certain job, or you want a certain partner, you let go all other persons. Let's say if it's that you're trying to be with someone and get married to them, let's say, you give up all other persons for this one person, don't you? Similarly, when you want, if you want a job, then you let go all other jobs to get this one job. And so it is with everything. If you're going to buy a car, then you give up all other cars to get this one brand or this one model or this one car. And so it is Krishna saying that to get me, you need to give up everything else. Otherwise, you can't get me. There is no focal point. You can't have everything. It's like if you want to marry, you can't marry everyone. If you want a car, you can't buy every car. It doesn't work like that. So those who fix their consciousness on me, giving up all material desires, share with me a happiness. Share with me. So together, there is a shared happiness that God is also enjoying and you are also enjoying. They share with me a happiness that cannot possibly be experienced by those engaged in sense gratification. What is sense gratification? It is the things we do to enjoy our senses. Nice foods, nice drinks, nice pillows and comfortable beds and wonderful air-conditioned houses and cars, and these are all things to enjoy our senses with. We go to a restaurant, we go to a vacation, all for enjoyment of our senses. Right? But the pleasure you get from these things is infinitesimally less, or massively, if you want to use a simple word, less than what you get in the association of Krishna or God. They share with me a happiness that cannot possibly be experienced by those engaged in sense gratification. One who does not desire anything within this world, who has achieved peace by controlling his senses. So now you notice there's a different focus. To control one's senses. By controlling one's senses, one experiences peace. How is this? See, when your senses are being pulled in all different directions and you have so many desires, how can there be peace? You're constantly wanting this or that or the other. Where is the peace? Peace is the absence of all these thoughts and desires and senses pulling you in this direction or that direction. When you can pull back your senses, when you have controlled your senses, controlled your mind, controlled your desires, one who does not desire anything within this world, how can that possibly happen? He's not saying to give up desire. Notice that. But one does not desire anything within this world. Then what is it that one desires? One desires the absolute truth, the highest bliss, the highest source of everything, Sri Krishna, the being who is the focal point or the creator, maintainer, and the destroyer of everything. He is everything. When you have that person, that being who is everything, and everything is within him, then you have everything. And if you have everything, then why would you desire anything? See, when your stomach is full, you don't desire food. Similarly, one who has received the blessings, the grace, the touch of the divine wants nothing in this world because they've gained something far superior to anything within this world, and they are satisfied within. So one who does not desire anything within this world, who has achieved peace by controlling his senses, whose consciousness is equal in all conditions. This is very important. This is equanimity, where your mind is equal in all conditions. It may be hot, it may be cold, you might be hungry, you might be thirsty. You're the same in all situations and all conditions. You're equally blissful in all of them. And whose mind is completely satisfied in me, finds only happiness wherever he goes. Let me tell you this. This is the formula. This is the absolute formula. One who does not desire anything within this world, who has achieved peace by controlling his senses, whose consciousness is equal in all conditions, and whose mind is completely satisfied in me, in Krishna, finds only happiness wherever he goes. Take this to heart. Take this as your mantra. Remember this always. 4 things that he's talked about. Let go your desires. Don't stop desiring. Desire him. Desire that supreme being, that absolute truth. Put all your desire to him. I want you and you alone. I want nothing but you. Isn't that how you do it when you fall in love with someone? Same way. Who has achieved peace by controlling his senses. So that's very important. We have to control our senses, because if we don't, then our mind is always agitated. We cannot be peaceful. And whose consciousness is equal in all conditions. So you're enjoying no matter what situation you're placed in, no matter where you are, no matter whether you're living in a palace or you're living out on the street, whether you're sleeping on a beautiful bed or whether you're sleeping on a sidewalk, let's say, whether you are given luxurious foods to eat or whether you have very simple or even old foods to eat, whether you have it's hot or it's cold, whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable, your mind is the same in all conditions. What would it take to get there? What would it take to have that kind of consciousness, that kind of equanimity? It takes practice. Putting yourself into uncomfortable situations and then not resisting them, not labeling them as good or bad. That's the key. When you see things as good and bad, I like this, I don't like this, this feels good, this doesn't feel good. If you go by what you feel and what you think and all the labels you give things, well then yeah, this is not possible for you. But if you understand that the real self is the soul and the soul exists in a space of non-duality, then for the soul there is no difference between any of these dualities, hot and cold, comfortable, uncomfortable. Doesn't make a difference. Hungry or full of food, luxurious or even old food, doesn't matter. The soul is not concerned. It is non-material and non-dual. So it is not caught up in these distinctions. It is only the mind that makes those distinctions. Right? The same mind that will tell you that one kind of food is so wonderful Somebody enjoys so much beef steak, and for another person, it's abhorrent. It makes you feel like vomiting. Well, who decided that? The mind has made up its mind based on whatever data it got from whatever anybody told you, whatever conditioning it received, that this is what is good. But the very same thing can be something completely disgusting and abhorrent to somebody who has developed a different taste or a different awareness. But a person who is in a state of non-duality does not get caught up in any of this. Such a person is completely satisfied in connecting with Krishna, and he finds happiness wherever he goes. One who has fixed his consciousness on me desires neither the position or abode of Brahma or Indra. So in other words, doesn't desire any heavenly planet or any beautiful situation or place. One who has fixed his consciousness on me desires neither the position or abode of Brahma or Indra, nor an empire on the earth, nor sovereignty in the lower planetary systems, nor the eightfold perfection of yoga, nor liberation from birth and death. Such a person desires me alone. Ah, so wonderful. This person does not even desire liberation from birth and death, doesn't even want to get out of the karmic cycle, does not try to get the siddhis, the perfections of yoga, by which one can have all kinds of mystical powers. Not even that. Not even wanting an empire on the earth. Oh my gosh. Such a person desires Krishna alone. Nothing else is the object of one's desire. So desire is there. Desire is very much there. But it is now channeled to the highest source and the highest pleasure. My dear Uddhava, neither Brahma, Shiva, Shankarshan, Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, nor indeed my own self are as dear to me as you are. Krishna is saying to his devotee that no one is as dear to me as you are. In the purport, it is explained that none of these personalities, even Krishna himself, are as dear to Krishna as his pure devotee Uddhava, who was an akinchana devotee, means someone who possesses nothing. What does it mean to possess nothing? I mean, you might possess the clothes you wear, at least, if nothing else, right? No. The only way you can be akinchana, which means to possess nothing, is to recognize that everything that you have belongs to God. And so therefore, at no point do you claim that anything is mine. Everything is Krishna's. My house, my car, my clothes, everything that I have is yours, Krishna. You have given it to me. You can take it away at any time. I am simply here to serve you, to take care of your house, to take care of your car, to take care of your family members. These are all your family members. All the people I call my brother, sister, wife, child, all of them are your family. And I am here simply to serve them. This is the mood of a devotee. And that is how one becomes akinchana, someone who possesses nothing. Srila Madhvacharya cites from Vedic literature the example that a gentleman sometimes neglects his own interest and that of his children to give charity to a poor beggar. It doesn't happen much these days. But this was the sign of a gentleman. This was the sign of someone who was a dharmic person, a spiritually evolved person, that one would suffer inconvenience oneself, but give in charity to someone who was in need. Similarly, Krishna gives preference to a helpless devotee who depends completely on his mercy. The only way to obtain his mercy is through his causeless love. And the Supreme Lord is most lovingly inclined towards those devotees who are most dependent on him. This key lesson here is about depending on God, trusting him. Just as a child trusts their parent. So just as mothers and fathers worry more about their helpless children than about those children who are self-sufficient. So if you have a child who is very helpless, let's say they've got either they're diseased or they've got some kind of a issue that they're struggling with, let's say academically, intellectually, physically, then that child needs more attention. And so the mother and father will tend to worry more about that child than they would about a child who is self-sufficient, who is functioning well and able to take care of themselves. Thus, even if one lacks any material qualification, one should simply depend upon Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, without any other interest, and surely one will achieve the highest perfection of life. So it doesn't matter whether you are very intellectual or whether very sophisticated in spirituality, or whether you've got tremendous capability for focusing or meditating, or no. One simply needs to be in a humble state of mind, calling out to Krishna helplessly, dependent on him. I have no other way to be able to reach you except by your mercy, by your grace. Right? In that helpless, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said one should call out in a helpless state of mind. Prabhupada would say one should chant Krishna's name like a mother, like a child calling out to its mother. In that humble state of mind, one can chant endlessly and one can touch the heart of Krishna, the Supreme Godhead. With the dust of my devotees' lotus feet, Krishna is saying this, with the dust of my devotees' lotus feet, I desire to purify the material worlds which are situated within me. This is the mind-blowing statement again. And I'll read it through and then we'll discuss it. Thus, I always follow the footsteps of my pure devotees who are free from all personal desire, wrapped in thought of my pastimes, peaceful without any feelings of enmity, and of equal disposition everywhere. Purport. Just as the devotees always follow the footsteps of Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, similarly Krishna, being a devotee of his devotees, follows the footsteps of his devotees. You are devoted to God and you think, oh, I am so devoted. No. If you have such illusions of grandeur, that's not going to touch his heart. But if you are truly devoted with simplicity and humility, then Krishna becomes devoted to you. He is a devotee of his devotee. And just as you follow in his footsteps, he follows in the footsteps of his devotees. Just as you seek to be able to get the dust of his lotus feet and place them on your forehead and surrender to him through that act of getting the dust of his feet, he surrenders to his devotees and places the dust of their feet on his head. So it says, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore there is no question of impurity in him. But Krishna thought, I have established this strict rule that one can enjoy my transcendental bliss only through devotional service or bhakti yoga obtained from the dust of the lotus feet of my devotees. So meaning when you have the mercy, the blessings, the kripa of a pure devotee of Krishna, that blessing, that dust of the lotus feet of his devotee, of the pure devotee, that gives you the association, the devotional service of Krishna, and then through that devotional service you taste the transcendental bliss of Krishna's association. So he says, I have established this rule that one can enjoy my transcendental bliss only through devotional service obtained from the dust of the lotus feet of my devotee, since I also desire to experience my own bliss, Krishna is saying. I will observe the standard procedure and accept the dust of my devotees' feet. And so there's a story of the gopis. See, there was a time when Krishna was unwell. Of course, he was acting unwell. And nothing could get him better. This is when he was in Dwarka. He was a king and he had all 16,108 wives. And they tried all the best of doctors and everything else, but Krishna wasn't getting better. He was having these horrible headaches and was feeling so unwell. So at that point, Narad Muni comes along and he says, what's going on out here? How is this possible? So he comes to check it out and he talks to Krishna. He says, what's going to make you well? And Krishna says, if you get me the dust of the feet of my devotees, I will get well. See, our feet, when we walk, they get dust, especially if you're walking barefoot. They get dusty, dirty. That dust, that foot dust, when it is placed on one's head, this is a sign of utmost humility, submission, surrender. So he says, if I can get the dust of the feet of my devotee, I will get well. So Narad Muni, great sage, goes to ask everyone in the palace. All the queens, 16,108 queens, none of them is willing to do it because they say we'll get sinful reaction. He is the Supreme Lord. They know him as such. If we give him the dust of our feet, that is a great sin. We can't do that. He asks, is Krishna's Vasudeva and Devaki, his birth parents? He asks everybody. No, everyone says no. Then he goes and tells Krishna. Krishna says, all right, you go to Vrindavan, where I grew up, and go and ask the gopis there and see what happens. So Narad Muni goes to Vrindavan. He gets there. He can get there instantly from Dwarka to Vrindavan. And he meets with the gopis and he tells them, oh, Krishna is very sick right now and he really, he's needing this special medicine. And they say, but what is this special medicine that will make him well? He says, it is the dust of the feet of his devotees. They say, we're his devotees. We'll give you the dust of our feet. Narad Muni says, isn't that going to give you sinful reactions? Doesn't that mean that you will have bad karma? They say, we don't care. If it makes him well, doesn't matter. We'll take all the sinful reaction. We'll take all the bad karma. Doesn't make a difference. If he gets well, that's all we care about. And so they happily give him the dust of their feet, and Krishna gets well. Such a beautiful relationship, such a beautiful understanding. So then Krishna continues, those who are without any desire for personal gratification, whose minds are always attached to me, who are peaceful, without false ego, and merciful to all living entities, and whose consciousness is never affected by opportunities for sense gratification, such persons enjoy in me a happiness that cannot be known or achieved by those lacking such detachment from the material world. Of course, this point was made earlier. It's being repeated here. And the purport says, pure devotees always desire to give Krishna conscious happiness to all others. And therefore they are called Mahanta, or great souls. Now, they want to make others experience this bliss so that they too can experience this transcendental happiness. In course of a devotee's service, many opportunities for sense gratification arise. But a pure devotee is not tempted or attracted and does not fall down from his exalted transcendental position. So there are those who, even though they have evolved on the spiritual path of bhakti, they may get tempted and they may fall down. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But the pure devotee does not get attracted to sense gratification, no matter in any form that it may arrive. Such a person is completely controlled their senses. Such a person is completely sober, dhira. Krishna says, my dear Uddhava, if my devotee has not fully conquered his senses, he may be harassed by material desires. But because of his unflinching devotion for me, he will not be defeated by sense gratification. This is a very, very important point because this is where most of us are at. That we have not fully conquered our senses. And we are being harassed by material desires, harassed because they're harassing our mind. And but if we have unflinching, unwavering nishtha, right? We are resolute in our determination. We have unflinching devotion for Krishna. Then he will not let us be defeated by sense gratification. In the purport it is said, a devotee, however, even though immature, never falls from the path of devotional service. Even if he displays occasional weakness, he is still considered a devotee if his devotion to Krishna is very strong. As Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text number 30, Apichet suduracharo bhajate mam ananya bhak sadhur eva samantavya samyak vyavasito hisa. Even if one commits the most abominable actions, Please hear this carefully, because sometimes people become judgmental of devotees, seeing them not being so perfect, or seeing them not being so proper, or seeing them even do things they shouldn't be doing, right? So Krishna is saying, even if one commits the most abominable actions, if he is engaged in bhakti, in devotional service to me, such a person is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has emphasized this. Trinadapi sunichena tarorapi sahishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. That one should give respect to all living beings. What to say of a devotee who is surrendered and serving Krishna, who is rightly situated, as Krishna is saying here. Someone who is engaged in devotional service. If someone is in that position, then all the more reason. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying one should be this way to everyone. Amanina manadena. Man means respect and dena means to give. One should give respect to everyone and not seek for respect for oneself. One should at no point criticize others, but rather be in a humble position and realize that I myself am so unworthy and so fallen and so undeserving of Krishna's grace, and yet he is so kind that he is allowing me to serve him. And you may think, oh my gosh, I'm unworthy, I'm undeserving. These things are horrible for the ego, I understand that. But when it comes to spiritual practice, these are the ways of defeating the ego. It is the ego that needs validation. It is the ego that needs to be told how wonderful you are, how amazing you are, how great you are. The ego feeds off of this validation or praise. But if you have the ego, then you cannot experience the soul. It will block your experience. It will cover it with a veil of such deep illusion that you cannot even begin to feel the presence of your soul. If you truly want to access your soul, then the ego has to come down and down and down. And therefore humility is so important. And that humility is taught by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this way. And one should think of oneself as lower than the straw in the street, meaning there's dirt on the street, there's straw, dirt, whatever. And you walk all over it. And people say, oh, I'm not going to let this person walk all over me. No, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, let them walk all over you. But don't do it from a materialistic perspective of being some kind of a pushover, as they say. But do it from a place of surrender to Krishna. Krishna, this is what you've sent my way. I submit to this. I do it for you, not for this person. I do it because I know that when I resist what life is showing me, I struggle and I fight and I endeavor to try to preserve my ego, my dignity, my respect, my body, all of that. But if I take it as your mercy and I do not resist, and I consider myself to be unworthy, then what happens is, in that condition, my heart opens up into loving you, loving Krishna in the most wonderful of ways. I become dependent on him. We see in the case of Prahlad Maharaj this happening, where he is so surrendered. His father is trying in so many ways to kill this little 5-year-old boy. And he's just unfazed. He at no point speaks ill of his father. At no point does he judge his father or call him any bad names or resist him in any way. His father's trying to kill him again and again and again, and the boy is completely unfazed because he feels the presence of God everywhere and in everything and in everyone. He is the perfect example of that. Prahlad. Krishna continues, my dear Uddhava, just as a blazing fire turns firewood into ashes, similarly, devotion unto me completely burns to ashes the sins committed by my devotees. So even if one has done wrong things, and even if one has done bad things and engaged in bad karmic activities or sinful activities, the fact that you're engaged in devotional service. You're engaged in serving Krishna and his devotees. He says, that very act, like a blazing fire that turns firewood into ashes, will destroy to ashes your bad karma and your sinful acts. It doesn't mean you keep on repeating those acts, though, because if you do, then then you are abusing Krishna's grace. That will not work. Like how people go and they'll go and confess, and then after that they will go back out and do the same things all over again, and then come back and confess, and again God. No, Krishna's not an idiot or a fool that he's going to go with that. Then he says, my dear Uddhava, the unalloyed devotional service rendered to me, pure devotion rendered to me by my devotee, brings me under their control. God is controlled by his pure devotee who wants nothing but him. I cannot be controlled by those engaged in mystic yoga, Sankhya philosophy, pious deeds, good works, Vedic study, austerities, or even renunciation. Only by practicing unalloyed devotion. Unalloyed means anya abhilashita shunyam, where you have no other desire other than to please Krishna. Only his pleasure is what you seek. You do not seek any satisfaction or pleasure for yourself. That is pure love. So when there is unalloyed, means unadulterated devotion with full faith in me, only then can one attain me. I am naturally dear to my devotees who take me as the only goal of their loving service. By engaging in such pure devotional service, even the lowest of people, he gives the example of the dog eater. It's a horrible thing in today's time. Nobody would think of eating a dog, but in Vedic culture, they were also considered the lowest of people, as were the cow eaters. They were considered even lower than the dog eaters. So, persons engaging in such pure devotional service, even the dog eaters can purify themselves from the contamination of their low birth. In the purport, it is said all around the world, many people are born into rich and powerful families, but they often acquire abominable habits that are part of their so-called family tradition. However, even unfortunate persons, so yeah, we grow up with various habits picked up from our families, and the foods we eat, the things we do, these are all the sanskars, the impressions that we've gained from our very childhood, to drink, to smoke pot, or to take other drugs, or to engage in sexual activities. All of that is part of the sanskars that we've picked up ever since we were growing up, from the TV, from the media, from our families, from the world around us. So this is people who are born into rich and powerful families, but they often acquire abominable habits that are part of their so-called family tradition. However, even unfortunate persons who are taught from birth to engage in sinful activities can at once be purified by the potency of pure devotional service. So we've seen this. People who've come to the path of bhakti have given up their sinful activities, meat eating, intoxication, illicit sex, and gambling. They've given up all of that. They've come to the path of pure devotion. Such service must have Krishna as the only goal. Krishna says, this must be one's focus, mananishta, that one has only Krishna as his goal. And that service to Krishna must be rendered with full faith, shraddhaya, and must be unalloyed or without any selfish motivation, ekaya. Neither religious activities endowed with honesty and mercy, nor knowledge obtained with great penance can completely purify one's consciousness if they are bereft of loving service to me. So you can engage in all the good deeds you want, all the religious activities, go to church, temple, mosque, whatever you go to. You may be honest and merciful, and you may have all kinds of knowledge, and you may perform great penances and fasting and austerities. None of them can completely purify your consciousness if they are bereft of loving service to the Supreme Godhead, Sri Krishna. The purport says, although pious religious work, truthfulness, mercy, penances, and knowledge partially purify one's existence, they do not take out the root of material desire. Thus, the same desires will reappear at a later time. After an extensive program of material gratification, one becomes eager to perform austerities, acquire knowledge, perform selfless work, and in general purify one's existence. So usually people go through this. They'll go through a period of time where they just want to enjoy their senses, and they realize this hasn't got them anywhere. Maybe they need to uplift their consciousness, do some good deeds, perform some austerities, meditate, chant, whatever it is, acquire knowledge. Then he says, after sufficient piety and purification, however, one again becomes eager for material enjoyment. So you go back in that cycle again. When clearing an agricultural field, one must uproot the unwanted plants. Otherwise, with the coming of rain, everything will grow back as it was. Pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord uproots one's material desires so that there is no danger of relapse into a degraded life of material gratification. Krishna continues, if one's hairs do not stand on end, how can the heart melt? This is so beautiful. He's talking about ecstatic rapture that comes in the association of God. When you are chanting His name, when you are seeing His form, when you are hearing His glories, if your hairs do not stand on end, and we're talking about bodily hairs, then how can the heart melt? And it has such a deep impact, and your heart melts. And if the heart does not melt, how can tears of love flow from the eyes? And if one does not cry in spiritual happiness, how can one render loving service to the Supreme Lord? Without such service, how can the consciousness be purified? Okay, let's look at this slightly differently. The symptoms of pure devotion are ecstasy, bliss, the kind of happiness that you cannot get in this world. When there is that ecstatic rapture, these are the symptoms. One's hairs of the body begin to stand on end. The heart begins to melt. And when the heart melts, there are tears flowing from the eyes. As you hear about Krishna, as you chant His name, these are the effects of tremendous ecstasy and bliss that arise in a pure devotee. If one does not cry in spiritual happiness, so this is not the crying of some mundane bad thing happened and now I am crying. No, these are tears of spiritual happiness. If one does not cry in spiritual happiness, how can one render loving service to the Supreme Lord? And without such service, how can the consciousness be purified? Chitta, the consciousness, can only be purified in this way. These are Krishna's words. The purport says, loving service to Krishna is like a blazing fire that burns to ashes all impurities in the heart and completely purifies one's consciousness. Such service produces waves of ecstatic love that completely cleanse the soul. Cetodarpanamarjanam, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. Right? These processes are designed to burn to ashes all the impurities in the heart and purify one's consciousness in such a way that waves of ecstatic love arise within one spontaneously. They cleanse all the impurities in the soul. In contrast, the small fires of mental speculation or mystic yoga can be extinguished by sinful desires at any moment. Those can always arise again. We've often seen it. Yogis sometimes become attracted to material things all over again. They come on the yogic path and now they're drawn to material sense gratification in some form or other. And ultimately it is, even if they're not attracted to anything of the world, they become attracted to the siddhis or the great gifts that are gained by performing the yogic practices. All of that is rejected here. Thus, by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, one should ignite the blazing fire of loving service to Sri Krishna and burn to ashes the network of material illusion. So this Bhagavatam which you're listening to, it has that power to ignite the blazing fire of loving service to Sri Krishna and to burn to ashes the network of material illusion. A devotee whose speech is sometimes choked up, so Krishna is now giving further symptoms, that the voice becomes choked up, whose heart melts, who cries continually and sometimes laughs, who feels ashamed and cries out loudly and then dances, A devotee thus fixed in loving service to me purifies the entire universe. So someone who is in this ecstatic state of pure love of God, whose speech is sometimes choked up, whose heart melts, who cries continually and sometimes laughs. So this crying is with joy, and who feels ashamed, maybe a little self-conscious is what it means here. That, oh, I need to rein myself in. I'm completely lost in my own thoughts and emotions and feelings for Krishna. So this person sometimes dances and sometimes sings and sometimes laughs and sometimes experiences so much joy from within. Such a devotee, thus fixed in loving service to me, purifies the entire universe. Purport is written, by melting of the heart, one becomes very steady in spiritual life. Normally, one whose heart easily melts is thought to be unsteady. But because Krishna is the stable foundation of all existence, one whose heart melts in love of Krishna becomes most stable and cannot be disturbed by opposing arguments, bodily suffering, mental problems, supernatural disasters, or the interference of envious persons. Because such a devotee is fixed in loving service to Krishna, he becomes the very heart of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna says, you become my heart, and I am in your heart. Just as gold, when smelted in fire, gives up its impurities and returns to its pure, brilliant state, similarly, the spirit soul, absorbed in the fire of bhakti yoga, is purified of all contamination caused by previous karmic activities and returns to its original position of serving me in the spiritual world. Again, so lovely. He's comparing the melting of gold to the purification that occurs when a person engages in serving Krishna. Just as gold, when melted in fire, smelted is the correct word, gives up its impurities and returns to its pure, brilliant state. Similarly, the spirit soul, absorbed in the fire of bhakti yoga, is purified of all contamination caused by previous karmic activities and returns to its original position of serving Krishna in the spiritual world. When you leave, Krishna says that one whose mind is fixed upon me at the time of leaving this body will come to me. One who comes to my abode never returns to this temporary and miserable world. When a diseased eye is treated with medicinal ointment, it gradually recovers its power to see. Similarly, as a conscious living entity cleanses himself of material contamination by hearing and chanting the pious narrations of my glories, he regains his ability to see me, the absolute truth, in my subtle spiritual form. And this is very important to understand. So just as an ointment, right, when your eye is diseased, you put this medicinal ointment and gradually your eye recovers its power to see. Similarly, a conscious living entity cleanses himself of material contamination by hearing and chanting what? The glories, the narrations of Krishna. And through that, regains his ability to see Krishna, who is the absolute truth, in his subtle spiritual form. Very key point here. Krishna doesn't have a material form. You can see him. But as we see each other, you can see him. The mind of one meditating upon the objects of sense gratification is certainly entangled in such objects. But if one constantly remembers me, then the mind is absorbed in me. So the mind will be absorbed in something. Either it will be absorbed in the things of this world if you keep focusing on those, or it will be absorbed in Krishna if you keep focusing on him. If you keep listening to his name and his mantras and kirtan and so on, then that's what's going to continue and start playing in your head. But if you listen to songs of romance and other things, then that's what's going to play in your head. Your mind is like a sponge. It will pick up on whatever you put into it. So if what you are focusing on, what your mind is meditating on, what is observing, is the objects of the self-sense gratification, if that's what you're letting into your senses, then your mind is going to keep wanting those things. So the mind of one meditating upon the objects of sense gratification is certainly entangled in such objects. And if one constantly remembers me, Krishna says, then the mind is absorbed in me. Therefore, one should reject all material processes of elevation, all material processes of elevating one's consciousness, which are like the mental creations of a dream, and should completely absorb one's mind in me. By constantly thinking of me, one becomes purified. Being conscious of the eternal self, one should give up the association of the opposite sex and those intimately associated with the opposite sex. Now, this verse is bringing up something very important and something that is so against the ways of this modern day world. But I don't think that it is so unusual. Just like when you're in a relationship with one person, that person doesn't want you to hang out with other such persons. So let's say, as a man, if I'm attracted to women, and that woman that I'm attracted to and involved with, she doesn't want me hanging out with other women, and or other people who are hanging out with other women. Do you get it? Because that then will break the connection I have with my partner. So in the same way, when Krishna is saying this, he's saying this for our benefit, because otherwise it is very easy to be led astray. The most powerful force in this world is sex. And it pulls away even the mind of great yogis or even people of great determination who might want to be faithful, who might want to be loyal to their partner, but then someone of the opposite sex comes along, you hang out, you spend some time having fun and joking and so on and so forth, and suddenly you're swept away. And now you'll betray your partner, engage in adultery of some kind, and your relationship has come apart. The trust is broken. The same thing happens with Krishna. The same thing happens with God. So he's saying, give up the association of the opposite sex. If you're a woman, then of men; of men, then of women, and those who are intimately associated with the opposite sex. Right? So in other words, other people, maybe as a man, if I then hang out with other guys who are also hanging out with other women, well, then that's, I'm just now going to again be back into that kind of association instead of being devout and devoted to my partner. Then he says, sitting fearlessly in a solitary place, one should concentrate the mind on me with great attention. Of all kinds of suffering and bondage arising from various attachments, none is greater than the suffering and bondage arising from attachment to the opposite sex and intimate contact with those who are attached to the opposite sex. So in other words, if your friends are very much into, let's say as a man, if I have many male friends and those male friends are very attached to other women and really chasing women and so on and so forth, and I go hang out with those friends, well, that kind of company is not going to be good for my relationship with my wife. You get it? So the bondage and suffering that arise from this attachment to the opposite sex, to sexuality, indiscriminate especially sexuality, causes so much of suffering and so much of problems that there is no other greater problem. You must know, you must have seen that. You're involved in a relationship, you end up cheating on your partner, and what is the result? Your family breaks apart, your children are left without their father or mother, one or the other, or and the whole household breaks and comes apart. Why? Because that's why he says, there is no greater suffering and bondage arising from attachment to the opposite sex. Then Uddhava, Krishna's friend, says, my dear lotus-eyed Krishna, by what process should one who desires liberation meditate upon you? Of what specific nature should this meditation be? And upon which form should he meditate? Kindly explain this topic of meditation. So then Krishna replies, sitting on a level seat that is not too high or too low, keeping the body straight and erect, yet comfortable, placing the two hands on one's lap, focusing the eyes on the tip of one's nose, right? One should purify the pathways of breathing by practicing the mechanical exercises of Puraka, that is inhalation, Kumbhaka, holding the breath, and Rechaka, or exhalation. So inhalation, holding the breath, then exhalation. And then one should reverse the process. Rechaka, Kumbhaka, Puraka, having fully controlled the senses. One may thus practice pranayam step by step. So this is the process. I'll show it to you. What he's talking about is where you close these two fingers, put those together, open this one up. This is the Vishnu Mudra. You then close one side, breathe in this side, breathe in, and close, breathe out. Breathe in, hold, breathe out. Breathe in, hold, breathe out from the other nostril. So in this way, one practices pranayam. Beginning, beginning from the Muladhara chakra, one should move. The Muladhara chakra is the root chakra at the very base of the spine. One should move the life air continually upward, like the fibers in the lotus stalk, until one reaches the heart, where the sacred syllable Om is situated, like the sound of a bell. This expression, like the sound of a bell, is because when you chant Om, it's Aum. So this, when you do it's A-U-M, A-U-M, Aum. And the ma sound, the last sound, is done with the mouth closed, and then the sound is reverberating inside your head, just as you would with a bowl when you're vibrating that sound, or a bell, right? The syllable Om is situated like the sound of a bell. One should thus continue raising the sacred syllable upward the distance of 12 angulas, and there the Omkar should be joined together with 15 vibrations produced with the Anuswara. Now this is actually quite complex, and I'm just going to read it through real quickly and then explain it to you. Being fixed in the Omkar, one should carefully practice the pranayam system 10 times at each sunrise, and then at noon, and then at sunset. Thus, after 1 month, one will have conquered the prana, the life air. So if you do this every day, 3 times a day, sunset, noon, and sunrise, and 10 times doing this whole cycle, you will have come into a place of conquering the prana, the life air. Keeping the eyes half closed and fixed on the tip of one's nose, being enlivened and alert, one should meditate on the lotus flower situated within the heart. This lotus has 8 petals and is situated within the heart. This lotus has 8 petals and is situated in an erect lotus stalk. One should meditate on the sun, moon, and fire, placing them one after another within the whirl of that lotus flower. Placing my transcendental form within the fire, one should meditate upon it as the auspicious goal of all meditation. That form is perfectly proportioned, gentle, and cheerful. It possesses 4 long, beautiful arms. So this is how one should meditate upon the Paramatma, the super soul within the heart. And this is the form one should meditate on. Possesses 4 beautiful long arms, a charming, beautiful neck, a handsome forehead, a pure smile, and glowing shark-shaped earrings suspended from 2 identical ears. That spiritual form is the color of a dark rain cloud and is garbed or clothed in golden yellowish silk. The chest of that form is the abode of Srivasta, and the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi. And that form is also decorated with a conch shell, disc, club, lotus flower, and garland of forest flowers. The two brilliant lotus feet are decorated with ankle bells and bracelets, and that form exhibits the Kaustubha gem along with an effulgent crown. The upper hips are beautified by a golden belt, and the arms are decorated with valuable bracelets. All the limbs of that beautiful form capture the heart, and the face is beautified by merciful glancing. Pulling the senses back from the sense objects, one should be grave and self-controlled, and should use the intelligence to strongly fix the mind upon all the limbs of my transcendental body. Thus one should meditate upon that most delicate transcendental form of mine. So it appears, according to the purport, it appears that the yoga system is somewhat technical and difficult to perform. Anuswara refers to a nasal vibration pronounced after the 15 Sanskrit vowels. The complete explanation of this process is extremely complicated and unsuitable for this age. From this description, we can appreciate the sophisticated achievements of those in former ages who practiced mystic meditation. So this process is actually designed for earlier time when people were more involved in the Vedic system, and it was there in its pure form in Dwapara Yuga and so on. But now that we are in Kali Yuga, in this age it is recommended, the recommended process of meditation is to chant the simple, foolproof method, simple, foolproof mantra meditation, Hare Krishna, as is taught by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So one should then pull the consciousness back from all the limbs of that transcendental body, and at that time one should meditate only on the wonderful smiling face of Krishna. Being established in meditation on Krishna's face, one should then withdraw the consciousness and fix it in the sky. Then giving up such meditation, one should become established in me and give up the process of meditation altogether. So in the purport it is explained that as one becomes established in pure consciousness, the duality of I am meditating and this is the object of my meditation vanishes. And one comes to the stage of spontaneous relationship with the personality of Godhead. So many people talk in terms of merging, but this is not about merging. This is about going beyond the fact that I'm the meditator and Krishna is the object of my meditation, but coming to a place of relationship with him. One's swabhav, one's true eternal relationship with the divine, with God, which can be as a parent, which can be as a lover, which can be as a friend, it can be very passive. Every living entity is originally part of God. And when the forgotten eternal relationship is revived, one experiences remembrance of the absolute truth. In that stage, described as Mad Aroha, one no longer sees oneself as a meditator, nor the Supreme Lord as a mere object of meditation, but rather one enters the spiritual world for an eternal life of bliss and knowledge in direct, loving relationship with God. When one fixes the mind upon Krishna's face, one achieves full liberation. In the post-liberation phase, one gives up the concept of being a meditator. One casts off this last small remnant of Maya, of illusion, and sees the Supreme Being as he actually is and proceeds to render loving service to him. So tell me, which would you rather have? Would you rather go merge into the light and then almost like commit spiritual harakiri, like, annihilate the self? Or would you rather engage in an ecstatic, blissful, eternal life of being with God and engaging in loving relationship with him? A life of fun and joy and pleasure and ecstasy with God, not separate from him, with him, in the spiritual world, with no physical body, but a spiritual body that is not subject to birth, death, old age, or disease. You are being invited to that life by Krishna himself through all of these texts. Krishna continues, one who has completely fixed his mind on me should see me within his own soul and should see the individual soul within me. Thus he sees the individual souls united with the Supreme Soul, just as one sees the sun rays completely united with the sun. The purport is said, in the spiritual world, everything is naturally effulgent, glowing, effulgent, full of light, because that is the nature of spirit. Thus, when one sees the individual soul as part of God, or the Supreme Soul, the experience can be compared to seeing the sun's rays emanating from the sun. The Supreme Lord is within the living entity, and simultaneously the living entity is within the Supreme Lord. But in both cases, the Supreme Lord and the living entity, the Supreme Lord, in both cases, the Supreme Lord and not the living entity is the maintainer and controller. So he's the maintainer and controller. We are in him and he is in us. How happy everyone could be by taking to Krishna consciousness and finding the Supreme Lord Krishna within everything and everyone. Liberated life in Krishna consciousness is so pleasurable that the greatest misfortune is to be without such consciousness. In the final verse, Krishna says, when the yogi thus controls his mind by intensely concentrated meditation, his illusory identification with material objects, knowledge, and activities is quickly extinguished. And the purport, it says, it is clearly seen in this chapter that Hatha Yoga, Karma Yoga, Raja Yoga, etc. are part of Bhakti Yoga and do not actually exist separately. The goal of life is Krishna. And one must eventually come to the stage of pure devotion if one desires to perfect one's meditation or yoga practice. In the mature stage of devotion, as described in this chapter, one becomes free from the artificial duality of meditator and the object of meditation. And one spontaneously engages in hearing about and glorifying the Supreme Absolute Truth. Such activities of Bhakti Yoga are natural because they spring from spontaneous love. When one revives one's original nature as the loving servant of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, other yoga processes cease to be interesting. In the Hatha Yoga system, one is concerned with bodily control, and in Jnana Yoga, one is concerned with speculative knowledge. In both systems, one endeavors selfishly, desiring to become a great yogi or a philosopher. Such egoistic activity is described in this verse as kriya. One must give up the illusory designations of dravya, jnana, and kriya and come to the prideless stage of loving service to the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. With that, we come to the end of this portion of the Uddhava Gita. Thank you so much for being here, for listening to it all the way to the end. And I wish you take these thoughts, these words deeply to heart, and let them transform your life and bring you back to Krishna very, very quickly. I know that if you absorb yourself in these thoughts and in remembering Krishna through these words, you will be with him very, very soon. Thank you so much for being here. Hare Krishna.